Hello everyone, welcome back, and this evening we have got the amazing Jo Pratt. She's one of our Cookbook Festival committee members. Hi Jo!
Caught me putting my wine.
Oh, I love it. I need to pour some. I'll just go downstairs to the kitchen. Can I just introduce you, Jo? So this is Jo Pratt, as I said. She's one of our founding committee members on the Cookbook Festival. She's a very well-known author of two runaway success books, The Flexible Pescatarian and The Flexible Vegetarian. And she's got a new book coming up. We'll talk about that in a while. And she has worked her career through book writing, working for magazines, working with famous chefs, doing some TV work, and also backing up part of the Gorgeous Kitchen, aren't you?
Yes, the restaurant over at Heathrow, which is obviously no longer running at the moment. But yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed. Things will be back to normal fairly soon. But yes, bits of all sorts going on there, really, isn't there? When you explain it like that, Fran.
You're busy, Jo. We love it.
It's varied. It's not as busy, obviously, at the moment. It's a different sort of busy.
Yeah.
Food is part of life. It's lifestyle, which is such a lovely thing, isn't it? I think whenever you do anything, it always has to revolve around a meal. So we're in a crisis at the moment for many people, but food is key. So I may not be getting paid for doing much stuff, but I'm trying to put stuff out there, like a lot of people are. There's so much on Instagram, and people are loving it. People are falling back in love with cooking, I think, which is really nice.
It's really nice. It's sort of everyone's sort of hunkering down at home and shopping well and cooking well and having the time to sort of get out those recipe books that they've always wanted to, or have a go at making sourdough. But Jo is going to cook for us this evening and teach us some tips live on TV, which is great.
I'm not going to be doing sourdough. Do you know, I'm trying so hard. I don't think I'm a patient enough person for sourdough. I have made started on a starter a few weeks ago, and it's just sat in the fridge now. So I'd love to say, yes, I will be part of the sourdough revolution, but I think probably a lot of other people have got in there first anyway and jumped in. But no, what I wanted to, what I chatted to you a couple of weeks ago, Fran, when you first started doing these amazing evening chats for our wonderful cookbook festival. And I thought, well, if there is anybody that was listening first time round, they won't want to necessarily hear the same old waffle that I come out with. So, you know, do a bit of
It's not waffle, Jo. It's not. It's good.
By the family who are actually, the kids are sitting over there looking at me going, what? Yeah, you waffle. But, you know, food and cooking is where I feel comfortable. So I thought, you know, I haven't been out shopping specifically. I had a quick look in the fridge to think, what have I got in here? And actually,
Great.
We're in season for asparagus. I was trying to work out the best place to put the camera for here. But so I've got some asparagus. Really, really fat tips of asparagus, but it is one of my favourite vegetables, I think, of all time. I think if anybody ever says, what would be your last meal to ever have? I will always say it depends on the time of year and it depends on my mood. But generally it would be salmon with some asparagus, a hollandaise sauce and some new potatoes. To me, that is just such a delicious dish. It's very British, very English. Well, apart from the hollandaise, I suppose. But I just love all of those flavours. So I kind of figured, right, well, I'll get my pans on. I'm going to cook some asparagus and just cook it very, very simply. Like you said, my background was working a lot with many chefs, and it made me realise just cooking things so simply is often the best way forward. And many years were spent working with Gary Rhodes, and he did a lot of cooking with asparagus. And he would always say, get yourself a frying pan on the heat, fill it up with some really salty water. I'll try and just move the camera down a bit there so you can see I've got this pan.
Lovely.
Here. Nice big frying pan. Now I'm going to lose the angle, aren't I? But all balanced on toasters and all sorts here. So I've got a hot pan, salted water, and that's just coming up to the simmer. And because they're quite thick stalks of asparagus, they'll probably take sort of up to 5 minutes. I don't like it when it's too al dente, because I think it does go a little bit too crunchy, but I don't want it to go really mushy. And in the time that it takes for the asparagus to cook, I wanted to show you a really quick, a sort of cheats hollandaise, really. And a lot of people panic a bit when it comes to making hollandaise sauce, because you have generally, you know, if you're doing it in a very traditional way, you'd have a bain-marie, so a pan over a pot of simmering water, and you'd be whisking and whisking until everything thickens. And it's really just to get that heat into the egg and the acidity coming from the lemon juice or vinegar that thickens everything up, and then you have the hot butter in there. And I thought of this recipe quite a long time ago now. It's one of the first books I wrote called In the Mood for Food. In fact, it was the very first book I wrote. And I did this quick version of a hollandaise sauce there. And I remember going on to the Saturday Kitchen with Anthony Worrell Thompson years ago when he was...
Really? Gosh.
That was my very, very first proper BBC TV debut. I was as nervous as anything. And I was making this particular recipe using the hollandaise sauce. Why I chose to do something quite so...
adventurous, classic.
I do not know, especially at getting up at a ridiculous time of the morning to do it. But it works.
Oh, Jo, we've just frozen.
These easy recipes that you can fall to. I'm hoping you can hear me all right, because I've got a little spinning wheel of death going on.
Yeah, it just froze there for a bit.
All right, well, I'll crack on. Stick your hands up and tell me if you can't hear me at any point, Fran. So my pan's boiling. So let me, while that's boiling, I'm going to put the asparagus in, and then I'll show you the hollandaise sauce. So asparagus goes into the pan of simmering water in a nice single layer. So that lovely salted water will just sort of season them up nicely. To make the hollandaise sauce, I've got myself a jar. It's an old honey jar from Tiger, I think. Beautiful honey that was. I'm going to put in here one egg, egg yolk. So let me just crack my egg, get rid of the white, or not get rid of it, but put it in a separate bowl. And in here is my egg yolk into there.
Brilliant.
The acidity, I'm using some lemon juice. So 2 teaspoons of lemon juice go into the jar. 1. Standing on my tiptoes to do this. I think I probably needed to change the angle. There we go. 2 teaspoons of vinegar. So there's the richness from the egg yolk, the acidity from the vinegar. And then in this pan here,
melted butter.
Got some butter. So that's 50 grams of butter, which is just melted. And ideally, if you're going to be doing this, just leave it to sit for a couple of minutes for the milk white, the white sort of the curd, sorry, to
fall to the bottom.
Bottom. What's it called? I've forgotten which way round it is now. And then just with a spoon, so it's basically clarifying your butter. You want to keep the nice golden bit, but on the top, there's always going to be a little bit of sort of white scum.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move that with a spoon just to make it a more clarified butter. Obviously, if you've already got clarified butter or ghee, then you can just use that as it is, and you won't need to be separating it all out. This
lovely
goes in. Half of it goes into the jar. So it's hot, bearing in mind it's hot, so it's going to start cooking that egg. Pop on the lid and shake. And this will start to thicken.
Just from the natural heat of the warm or hot butter, that's enough for the egg.
But the acidity from the lemon juice and the egg, which is emulsifying, is thickening up with everything. It looks a bit like lemon curd at this stage. But that's all starting. I mean, it doesn't go really super thick. It will if you leave it to cool. So let's just add the rest of that butter. So another 25 grams in there. Give it another good shake. And then you can season it with some salt. It's got the lemon in there, which is really nice, but it does need a bit of salt. And then a little sprinkle of cayenne pepper. But what I really like at the moment, because we've got this nice asparagus, and I'm going to show you some salmon as well that I've done, is to flavour the hollandaise with some, hot horseradish sauce. So
oh, I've never done that, Jo. That's a good tip.
Really nice. So this, you can perhaps see in there. It's not really thick at this stage, and obviously it's not as light and airy as a classic hollandaise sauce, but you've got that flavour of the hollandaise sauce, and as it cools down slightly, it will thicken because obviously the butter in there starts to set. I'm going to add a little sprinkle of cayenne, just for a bit of bite, and then a pinch of salt. So really simple ingredients. And then I'm just going to take my horseradish sauce, dollop that in. So that's a hot horseradish, only about a teaspoon. Give this, oh, wrong lid. Give this a shake. Like so. And then obviously have a nice taste. But I made this earlier as well, knowing that I didn't want it to fail, just in case it did. I've got here's one I made earlier over there. But
well done.
Your quick, simple hollandaise sauce. Now this is probably the right time for the asparagus to come out, so I'm going to take that out of the pan. So just grabbing a pair of tongs and a flat plate, I'll try and, in fact, I'll get Rosa. Rosa, can you come and just get the camera for me and angle it down? My
You're doing a grand job, Jo. You're the first to join cooking for us live, so thank you.
You're welcome. It's great. So I just need Rosa to put that. There we go, Rosa. Just put it.
This is like Jamie Oliver, everyone, with his wife, but you've got Jo with her daughter, Rosa.
Oh, I've been loving watching some of Jamie's things that he's been doing. There we go. Let's just keep that there. That's it. So look, scatter those on there. And also, another quick thing I want to show you. This doesn't look the prettiest here, but I smoked some salmon earlier on. Hot smoked some salmon, and I'll explain what I've done to that in a minute if you want me to. I'm just going to sprinkle some of that over the top of here. And then we can put the asparagus, sorry, the hollandaise sauce over the top of both of them. And, you know, this is plenty to serve a couple of people with some nice new potatoes for supper.
This is a beautiful meal for this weather, Jo, and it's so seasonal.
It's very, very seasonal. I mean, you know, salmon's in season. You've got the asparagus in season. So here we've got our hollandaise. As I say, it's a little runny at this stage because it's very, very warm still. Just pour some over the top. And then you can serve.
But it's got a slight cling to it, so it is coating the things, which is what you want.
Absolutely, and it'll just sort of give it some really nice it'll soak in because the asparagus is nice and hot. That's just some fresh chives. Let's see if Rosa can angle that there. So there we go. There's our. Thank you, Rosa.
That looks amazing.
Well, one more little bit over the top there. Super naughty hollandaise.
I
Really,
love the idea, Jo, that you
flavour.
I love the idea that you've home smoked your salmon.
So to do that, that is a recipe that's in. So you're talking about my book. So this book here, just so handy, the Flexible Pescatarian. There's a recipe in there, and it's for a tea smoked salmon. And I haven't actually tea smoked this one. Sorry, I haven't done the exact same recipe, but I've given you the recipe to put on our website for the Cookbook Festival, for the one that's actually in this book. But
Thank you.
Salmon fillets or any fish really, even vegetables would work, just season them with a bit of salt. Get a roasting tray or a wok, put some foil underneath, and then inside you fill it with your smoking mixture. And I just used some dry rice, some tea leaves. It was an Earl Grey tea, a bit of Darjeeling, I think. So that gives it a really nice aromatic flavour. And some sugar, some brown sugar, and that just helps that caramelisation going on. So you've got the burning coming from the tea, you've got the heat in the rice that stops everything going too far, and then the sugar caramelises. And then you want to put some flavours in there as well. So the recipe in the book shows some sort of more Asian spices, star anise and Chinese five spice. But today I used some fresh bay leaves because a neighbour had just cut down a whole bay bush. I've got those in there, and some fennel seeds and peppercorns. And then you just put a foil over the top, and then just put the heat underneath it on the hob. Make sure the foil's tight so you don't lose all of the smoke, and then just let it smoke for 10 minutes and then leave it for about 5 minutes, and then you've got your salmon that's lovely and smoked, got beautiful flavour, and it's lovely. And actually I'll put the recipe on my own page as well. I'll do that either later or tomorrow because I took some pictures as I was doing it, and I had some vegetables that I put on there as well, some mushrooms and some red peppers, just to sort of use up the space in the roasting tray.
Fantastic. I think you need to turn your volume up, Jo. Maybe it's gone down in the clamp you've put it in.
Is that any better?
Yeah. Yeah, or maybe something's underneath your phone. It's gone a bit quiet.
That's the clamp now.
Don't worry.
I don't have. I can be hands-free. There we go. I mean, I don't have to be hands-free.
Can I just ask you two things? So cheers. Thank you. That was absolutely brilliant. Cheers. And it looks great. Can I just ask you two things? So can you just tell us your salmon that you used, is it raw? And then you smoke it to cook it?
It's raw salmon.
Yeah, okay. And then you put this base of your smoking things underneath. And then what do you put in between before you put the salmon so it's not getting messy?
Sorry, I was rushing through that a little. So you put your smoking mixture on the base and then a rack. So I just used my grill pan really. So the one that goes in the oven. So you've got the and then you sit the salmon on there, so it's not directly touching the smoking mixture. And then when you wrap your foil around it, just do it so there's a little bit of a gap. So you're not touching the top of the salmon with the foil, so it creates a nice air space for the smoke to really sort of circulate around the salmon itself.
Okay, and you seal the foil all the way around the wok, so you sort of create a bubble for all the smoke to stay in.
Yes, yeah. And then so long as you're using either a wok or a roasting tray that will sit on a gas flame or an electric hob, and it's not going to ruin the pan, then you're away really. Or you could do it on a barbecue. You could put, you know, if you've got an outdoor gas barbecue, sit it on top of that, which, you know, if a bit of smoke escapes outside, it doesn't matter. It smells amazing.
No, it is fantastic. I remember back in the 80s, I used to do an awful lot of it and tea smoked sea trout, because sea trout is very in. And I think the first time I ever read it in a book was like Peter Gordon or The Silver Palette. And there was lots of that because it was very sort of the beginnings of it. But now people are more adventurous because of things like being able to do it on your wok or in your tray, and you're not worried about it. People play around at home, and it's great you've got a recipe.
It's fun to play around with. You know, I think the recipe in my book, I actually marinate the fish first, which you can do. It just creates more flavour. For this one, I just kept it really simple because I want to enjoy the you know, that lovely flavour with the hollandaise sauce and the asparagus. So you can pick and choose the aromatics that you put in the bottom of your roasting pan or your wok, really, which just makes it fun to do. And it creates a bit of theatre, really. It's quite a nice thing. I've done a lot of classes at Leeds Cookery School, and I've done smoking. We've done mushrooms. So you start your class by saying, "So today we're going to smoke mushrooms." It's like, oh, are we? In what way? Didn't think it was that sort of class. It's cooking, but yeah, it's good to do. So it's anything's fun to do.
Oh, that's brilliant. So can we talk about your next book? Because I know you've just put a book to bed, or is it still going through the editing process?
It's gone off to print, which is very exciting. It comes out on I believe the 8th of September. As far as I know, nothing's been slowed down on that side of things with regards to whole COVID at the moment. So that's good. It is called the Flexible Family Cookbook. So it's sort of the third in line from the first flexible series I did. It was Flexible Vegetarian. Then it was Flexible Pescatarian, which is what I was just talking about. And this one is Flexible Family Cookbook. And it's recipes they're family-friendly recipes. So, you know, my children, Ollie and Rose, are there now 12, nearly 13 and nearly 11. So they're recipes that the whole family can sit down and enjoy, rather than being sort of ones for toddlers and then a separate meal for adults later on. But anybody that seems to have, or that will have sort of a house full of people, will find that there's nobody who always eats the same thing. You may have somebody who's got a dietary requirement, or is just downright fussy, or is vegetarian, vegan, they've got a girlfriend coming home who's vegan, or a boyfriend that doesn't eat this. You know, everybody's families and sort of extended family and friends, it's never going to be a meal that would just, the same meal suits everybody. So what I wanted to do was have recipes that are great for people to cook, but have that flexibility of changing the ingredients around to suit that. So it could be like a sort of a big tray bake, and okay, so next time we do it, we know that we're going to have to make it vegetarian, so you've got that recipe in there and it tells you how to make it vegetarian if you need to. Or it might be a gluten-free option. You can make this cake, but if you want to make it gluten-free and dairy-free or vegan, it's got the ideas in the recipe itself telling you the ingredients to use. So it's sort of one recipe and then lots of different alternative ideas for it.
That must have been very time consuming to write, because in one recipe you're actually writing 3 options.
Well, yes, because I always try them out and test them. So it's not a case of, oh, well, let's just assume it works. So yeah, it's it is time consuming, but it's a challenge, and it's one that, I guess, having a family, you know that no meal is ever going to be the same. So it's just like everyday life. And I try all the recipes out on the kids and Phil, my husband, and anyone that comes around. So books, as you know, are not a quick process. And it's pointless trying to throw it together in a quick way, because I think, you know, I know cookbooks, when people buy them, they don't do every single recipe in that book, but somebody will do every single recipe at some point. Yes. And it's really nice to know that they work, and you've got to feel passionate about what you write and what goes out there. Otherwise, it's sort of a shame to have it on the shelves, and you don't want to be embarrassed about it. You want to be proud about it.
Absolutely, but it was quite a challenge and an undertaking because I presume the book has like 100 recipes in it, but really you've written 300 recipes.
Yeah, and it's got about 75 this one. So yes, I mean 3 times 75 or more. Some of them are, you know, extended versions. I mean, some of the options are really straightforward and simple, but yeah, it's
Yeah, but a vegan cake, that's quite complicated because the butter, the eggs, they're key
yeah.
to a cake.
Exactly, and they're the things that actually it's the baking side of things that are more of a challenge. I think a lot of people will look at a recipe that's a savoury recipe that's baked, not a sort of a cake type recipe, and think, oh, of course, yes, that makes sense. But having those ideas, it just gives people inspiration in there. But the baking side of things and the sweet recipes in there were the challenging ones, definitely. But you know, it's what a lot of people enjoy, and that's where you need the advice and the help. And you don't want to just go and buy a book that's suitable for celiac, because you might not always want to do that recipe that's a gluten-free recipe, because you want it to be suitable for non-celiacs another day. So it's just giving those options really. So
Yeah,
yeah, the flexible book, it'll be out in September, so I'm really excited.
that's very exciting. Can I just ask you one thing? In your baking for vegans, what was your
Yeah.
go-to oil? Was it coconut oil or?
Well, it depends. Coconut oil, it can have quite a strong flavour. So
Mm,
rapeseed oil, I like using a light olive oil. It's always quite nice as well. It depends on the type of recipe. There's one
yeah.
recipe in there that it's an oil-based cake. So it's a light olive oil cake that's using lemons and oranges. And instead of, it has eggs in there as well, but then there's an option if you don't have the eggs, then it explains how you can do it using chia seeds instead, and a yogurt that's in there, so you can use a coconut yogurt. And actually the vegan, gluten-free, everything free version of it, I actually prefer more than the standalone recipe that I wrote in the first place in some ways. So yeah, it depends on the recipe. Oils can be a challenge. I mean, the great thing about coconut oil, it solidifies when it's cold,
Yeah.
like butter.
Yeah.
So sort of swap and change. There's some nice biscuits in there using an olive oil, some cookies, olive oil
Nice.
cookies. I've been doing, you know, I'm so desperate to share the recipes now. A lot of them I've been doing during lockdown, because often I've not got an ingredient like butter I've run out of, and I'm thinking, well, I'll make the cookies with olive oil, but I don't want to tell people about it yet because it's still, the book's not out, so I want to
No, because
keep.
the book, I can agree with that. But can I
Yeah.
just ask you, so who tumbled upon this word flexible? Because this is your third book with flexible in it, which is fascinating because it's a beautiful word in today's society, because we do have to be flexible.
Yeah, we do. I think it was a combination of myself and the publisher, Quarto Publishing, and it was originally a vegetarian cookbook that you know, we were talking about doing a vegetarian cookbook, and I said, I'm not really vegetarian myself, but I will swap and change. And the idea evolved from there. And I just think the word flexible just popped up one day as they do. And yeah, flexible is, we are all more and more now having to be flexible with everything that we're doing and eating and work and lifestyles. Just all about flexibility these days. It really is.
It is, it is. And can we just talk about writing books? Because I've had so many people this week ask me about getting into having a book published.
Yeah.
Like we've both done it, but I think people, I think it used to be a lot easier, I will say. I don't think it's so easy now because there wasn't all the social media where you could just, like youngsters, just tap away on their phone and they get a recipe, or they can put what's in their fridge and they get a recipe. So I think you now today have to have more of a sort of character, a following for people to buy into your style of writing.
Yeah, it's working. You're right. There's two things. And when you were chatting to Alistair Little the other day, and you asked him whether he would, if there's another book in him, and he said no. I've been asked, and no. You know, you have to have a big TV program now and to be a really big person to do a book. I disagree with that. There is an element of truth in that, because yes, you're a personality, and people hear about your book a lot more. But you know, it's a case of finding an idea that's perhaps not been really worked on, and trying to sort of push it forward. And of course, we can get everything on the internet, but it's so nice having a cookbook sometimes and having something that people can pick up and look at. And you know, for your instant recipes, great, go online, and there's some amazing stuff on there. But there's much more. It's much more of a challenge now. People aren't sort of giving those book deals as freely as perhaps they would have done years and years back. And it is hard to break into it, but people can get their work published easily just by writing a blog. I mean, this is where the difference is. If you haven't got a book publisher, you can publish your work instantly online, but you know, getting a book out there is much trickier. I think publishers are not making the money they used to, so they haven't got those advances to pay people that they used to be able to pay as well.
Yes, definitely that. And also one thing, I don't know, you might agree with me or disagree with me, but do you remember when everyone first had iPads and there were going to be lots of cook-alongs and you would be able to find a recipe book live? Has that taken off or has it not? Because I would sort of say maybe it hasn't, because I don't ever go into anyone's kitchen and see them following a live cook-along and that's their cookery book.
No, but I think I don't think it has taken off as much as perhaps we thought it was going to. But I think now with Instagram, it's definitely starting to work in a different way like that, because we can, with now on Instagram, you can do your IGTV little videos, and you can start and stop those as much as you want to. So I think yesterday or the day before, I sort of got into watching a Gordon Ramsay one, which was dinner in 10 minutes. Well, if somebody wanted to follow that recipe, they could just keep pressing pause on that video and follow that recipe from start to finish, because it's simple recipes. But no, the whole sort of iPad flick through your iPad,
wasn't it? It was people were going to have apps for cookery books. They were going to app them. I remember one of mine, they were going to app, but I don't think that took off. But as you say, the IGTV, and you can cook along, but it's the chefs and it's the food writers putting themselves up and their own time, isn't it?
Yeah. It very much is, yes, yeah. Whereas I guess the apps would have been down to the publishers that would have got involved in it a little bit more. But yeah, it's interesting to see how things change. And I do think now people, much more within the last couple of months, don't expect perfection with everything that they're seeing, especially if they are seeing it via Instagram or Facebook or whatever, because we're all working more from home. And it doesn't matter if you see people wandering around in the background. I'm sure you probably see my husband wandering around behind me a minute ago, but you know,
I think it's rather charming. It's rather beautiful. It's rather real, instead of all this perfection that used to be sort of touted into our homes, and then made the nervous cook even more worried.
Yeah, you see, years ago, when I first started working on TV programs, and it was with Gary Rhodes, one of the first main sort of TV program series I did, we would have filmed maybe 1 or 2 recipes in one day. And it would have probably even longer than that. It would have taken ages, and we would have had versions of each stage that would be 3 cameras, 3 camera angles, a close-up, a wide, and a really sort of wide shot. And everything took so long, and it looked beautifully perfect. But compared to, you know, if you watch those things now, compared to what we see now on TV, I think it would just seem a little bit odd seeing all of that real staid perfection. We've got used to having everything just a little bit more loose and free and natural, which I think is a much nicer way to do it. But people expect more of you, though, as a person. I think now you have to fit a lot more in a day.
Well, you have a good and solid Instagram site, and you work quite hard at that, don't you? Because that's like your own self-publicity. And then you have your agent, and then you have your publishers. And what other platforms do you have, Jo?
Well, that's it, really. I've been very rubbish at Instagram in the past, I think. It's only this last sort of few weeks I've thought I've really got to throw myself into this. I was a little bit anti it to start with, because I was like, oh, I'm too old for all of this. I can't get my head into how it works. And you put all of this effort into it. What do you get back out of it? Because I guess perhaps I was just used to, here's a project, here's a job, do this. And you know, you get sort of
this is
the
start and
stop point. Whereas and there's Instagram, it's down to you to do, and there is no start and stop. You can carry on for as long as you want to. You can put as many posts on there as you like. And I think it's being in this whole lockdown thing that's made me fall in love with it a little bit more. And I do enjoy it. So it's mostly Instagram, and I put bits on Twitter. Facebook, it's mainly really sort of for friends and stuff, I suppose. But and then the cookbooks. Love doing the cookbooks, and then cookery lessons and cookery classes when we eventually have a bit more of a life that we were used to from the past. Try and do some more cookery classes and things at Divertimento and Leiths, etc. So
and you also get your books put into magazines and papers. And am I right in thinking that one of the papers contacted you and wanted your IGTV to put up on their platform?
Yeah, the Daily Express have put a couple of my videos on their Instagram site, I think. So that's, yeah, I mean, this is the thing. You put stuff up and it gets spotted by different people. I've always wanted to do more TV things in the background.
Yeah, you're very good at it. Oh, we've
So,
frozen again. Can I cheekily ask you, Jo, did you get paid for that, or is it just the honorarium?
No, just the honorarium. You know, you put it up there, and I'm happy for it to go up there. There's nothing that I don't need to. You know, I've already put it on my site. So I guess moving forward, I don't know how that works with regards to you know, people using your content if you agree to it. We all have to make our own money at some point. This is the thing, isn't it? You can't keep putting stuff out there for free and never get paid for anything. Books, great, love it, but they don't make you $1 million. You know, as lovely as it is, it gets you out there, it gets you recognised and noticed in the food world. But you still have to make your bread and butter.
Yeah, you do. But you know, you have your good following, and you're very good, and you teach at a lot of schools, like Divertimenti and Leiths, and I'm sure you do demonstrations at other places, and you do pop-ups when your books come out and go round and show people. You have to be very committed and very active, don't you?
You do.
Festivals.
You do. Yeah, it's nothing comes easy. You know, you've got to put that effort into it to get something out of it. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have had things that have happened very quickly. Do we keep freezing? Am I here now?
We do a bit, don't worry.
Can you hear me now, Fran?
You're here there, you're there.
I'll
Yeah, I can.
Okay,
maybe someone is on the internet in your house, but don't worry. This is real TV on our IGTV. That's what it is. They're taking your bro.
Apparently for dishwashers on and a washing machine and a microwave, that interferes with your Wi-Fi as well, but none of those are on at the moment.
I think someone might be on their phone or their PlayStation.
Yeah, the Xbox is quite possibly on Ollie upstairs, I'm sure. I don't know, I'm trying to look around to see who's where. No. Oh, Phil's turning his off, he's just told me. He was watching TV.
Naughty Phil, thank you very much.
It's just a weird thing about being in lockdown at the moment. It's so nice having your family around, you know, everybody around and about the whole time. You know, we're all not used to this, I guess. We're busy lifestyles and working, being out and about at different times. This is the nicest thing about it. It's had its real problems, and we've been very lucky in our house. None of us have been poorly, and likewise in the rest of my family. So we've escaped so far. And this way, we've engaged so much with our neighbours. Like I said, I got these bay leaves from them who were cutting a bush back. And people are saying, oh, we've had a birthday party, we've got some leftover cupcakes. Not birthday party, you know, somebody's birthday in the house. Does anybody want some cupcakes? And I think that's a really nice thing. The communities have come together and everybody's really sharing recipes and things, which is good. I don't know why my beep is going off.
Yes, you've got stuff going on, haven't you? Actually, someone's just written, Victoria lived here, who joins us every evening. Thanks, Victoria. She's just said that Deliciously Ella has had over 1 million sales of her app. So we're wrong. But she's the exception to the rule. Yeah, but Deliciously Ella is the exception to every rule. I mean that with all good grace. She's amazing how she's just she's like a young person that connected very quickly and connected with a youthful audience who were more into this than older people, and it just ran away with it. And she's very successful with her husband and very clever.
Came along to the Cookbook Festival in year 1, didn't she? And did a talk promoting one of her new books at the time. Was that 2.5 years ago now? I think when we did our first festival in Chiswick.
Yeah, and that was incredibly gracious of her and really good of her. So well done, Deliciously Ella. And she's about to have her second baby, or she's halfway through her pregnancy, which is very exciting for her.
Yeah. Oh, it's lovely.
So your book, The Flexible Family Cookbook, comes out in September. So Jo will be wild and active and sharing everything about it, and you'll be reading about her in the magazines and the papers with her recipes. And it's great for the modern family that is accommodating people with all sorts of diets and needs and possibly fads and just dietary requirements because they choose to be vegetarian.
I like to think of it as the Swiss Army knife of cooking, because it's got a sort of, it's a tool that will suit all sorts of problems and issues. You can turn to it and think, right, there we go, here's the recipe, here's this bit for there, that's for there, and that's for them. And yeah, it takes the stress out of cooking. We don't want to be making hard work of our cooking. We want to all sit down and enjoy a meal together. It's the perfect time to chat. So why make it hard work, and why turn to ready-made meals if you can just make one dish to suit all? Which is what I'd really like people to do. And none of the recipes, like any of mine, are really complicated and hard work. And you know, if anybody who's still listening now was seeing at the beginning, things like a quick hollandaise sauce, that's my style of cooking. I need something that's easy. I'm not one for hard work. Hence the reason why I'm probably not doing too well with my sourdough, because I'm not patient enough.
I was talking to a friend this morning, and I think sourdough is like a baby. You sort of have to play with it for a month to settle it in, to work out its routine and sort of make tiny changes, because you're not sure which is working and which isn't. It's a bit of a game, but you can get there. But Jo, I really like your comparison to the Swiss Army knife of cooking, your book. That sounds like a good, common sense, straightforward book that's going to be a great success and last a long time, because I don't know when the Swiss Army knife was invented, but it's been around a long time.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, let's hope it. I hope it is, and maybe more books will come off the back of that one. You know, the sort of the ideas in each of those chapters. You could take just one chapter and make a whole book about it. There's a sort of chapter on breakfasts. There's one on soups. There's one on small dishes and sort of light meals, main courses, and then desserts and baking. And you know, it's got legs. The Army knife has got legs.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It opens bottles of wine, it sort of chops bits of wood, it does all sorts of things.
You're right.
So to any of our youngsters who are out there and wanting to write their first book, what would you just say their first track should be, their first move, if they're newbies and they think they've got an idea?
Write your stuff and do some blogging, because it's a good way of practicing your writing, and then you can go back and look at it, or get somebody to look at it for you and say, oh yes, that does, you know, whenever you read over your own work, it's never the same as somebody else reading it. So just keep practicing writing, and just get as much experience as possible in any area of food, whether it's working in your local restaurant, or right at the moment that's not ideal. Trying out different ingredients and taking photographs yourself, experimenting with different methods, reading around all the different books that are there, and just being keen and throwing yourself into every opportunity you possibly can. Publishers themselves, they must be inundated with people giving them stuff all of the time. I really don't know the easiest way to just suddenly get a publisher to notice you when there's so many out there. But if you've got something like a website with some stuff on, or an Instagram sort of following, then at least that's a start. It's better than nothing at all. And you know, cookery courses, if you haven't already done one, are a brilliant way of getting experience in different types of food as well, really. My background was a home economics degree. Didn't quite know what I wanted to do, but then I did some work experience at the BBC Good Food magazine, and it opened up so many doors, and that was years back now. So I know it's harder now than it was then, because there's more competition. But it's just getting that right idea, you know, reading around and coming up with that amazing idea and pushing yourself.
Yeah. I've just noticed we've been joined by Tara Wigley, who I think has one of the best jobs in food at the moment. She wrote, she's the other half of Sami Tamimi Faustin. And she must just, so she's joining us tomorrow. So I'm really thrilled that she's joined into this conversation. But you know, her it's right time, right place, and really working hard at your ideas, isn't it?
It is. It's finding something that perhaps hasn't quite been done, or you feel that could be done in a better way. It's a tricky one. It really is. It's, like I say, right time, right place, and trying to just meet the right people and assist and work with other people for free if you can. As easy as it sounds, it's I know not necessarily practical, but you know, try and ask a food writer if you can go along to photo shoots with them, or go into a local restaurant, if you want to go more into restaurant critic sort of work, you know, just do it locally and just try and get as much of an idea as to what's out there as you can.
Okay, and I have to say, Janet Clark Books, who's very respected, she says, learn how to write a recipe correctly. And that is a skill, I will say.
That's true. And it is a skill. You and I have worked with a lot of people where we have adapted and rewritten their recipes for them because they may be amazing cooks and amazing chefs. But when it comes to writing a recipe and getting people to be able to do it at home is a very, very different thing altogether. It's working out the quantities, the wording, making it seem doable rather than completely complicated and nobody quite knows where they are, and getting everything in the right order, and also, you know, things like ingredients. I know there's editors out there that probably get sent awful stuff that they have to rejig, but they don't want that. They want to have a recipe in the first place that's actually quite well written. So having those ingredients written in the order in which you use them in your recipe, and then don't suddenly throw something in the method that's got nothing, no reference to it in the ingredient section at all. You know, it's got to work. And actually the best way of doing that is writing it out and giving it to somebody that doesn't know the recipe, a friend or a family member, and saying, can you cook that please, and let me know how you got on, and get them to give feedback. It's the best
in the days gone by, I can remember chefs were really you know, chefs were gods and they were doing amazing things, but could they write a recipe? No. And that's where lots of people, because they could write the ingredients roughly, it's a handful, it's a this, because they're very visual, and then they would just say, and cook. But that didn't really work. So chefs have become a lot better because they realise now that you need to have repetition and it needs to be identical every time. So more manuals in kitchens are built instead of, unless it's a privately owned place, that's someone just sort of cooking with their love and a shimmy of this and a shimmy of that.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, that's true. And it's getting those right weights and measurements that, you know, when nobody wants to have a recipe that suddenly says 2.1 grams of salt. Well, hold on, no, we don't have that sort of measuring machine at home. We're not that sort of person. You need it to be doable stuff for people. So yes, that's a very good comment, actually, getting those.
And Jules, the foodie, has written equipment lists are really also very useful. I don't know if I sit on the fence on that one a little bit, I have to say, Jules, sorry. Just because sometimes I was asked to put down that you need a knife, a chopping board, a saucepan or whatever. But I think if it's a key complex bit of equipment, then you write it down.
Yeah. I guess if it was, you know, say it was a recipe written by a pastry chef, and they wanted you to make sure in advance you've got a digital thermometer and a certain size icing bag nozzle, it's handy having that as your equipment recipe. You'd hope, depending on the book, that most people some basic stuff in their kitchen to start off with. But timings is always a good thing. I think people like to know roughly how long a recipe will take. When you look at it, you don't want to think, oh, that looks nice, so the picture looks great. The recipe doesn't look too long, and then you suddenly see the bottom, it says cook for 3 hours, but there's no reference to that higher up in the recipe, and then that's thrown you. So it is nice to have that guide at the top of a recipe as well.
I think a recipe should always start with the title and how many it makes for and how long it takes to cook.
Yes, definitely.
And then people are away. But listen, Jo, this has been fantastic talking to you, and thanks for cooking your own supper, but tempting us all to be able to enjoy it. So that's Jo's hot smoked salmon and asparagus with cheeks hollandaise, which looks delicious. Fantastic. And you're going to serve that with some potatoes for supper.
I am. I nearly dropped it in the frying pan then, actually. That wouldn't have been ideal. Yes.
And Jo, just can you share with us?
Sorry, Fran, say again.
Your favourite film, book, influencer, food-wise?
Well, my favourite film, foodie film, is Ratatouille. I love that film. It's a kids' film, but it just is all about, it's not a kids' film actually, it's aimed at anybody, and it's all about perfection and flavour and being a restaurant critic and getting that perfect ratatouille by the rat. which I just think is brilliant. I love that film, and anybody that's not seen it, definitely watch it. It's not just for kids. Favourite book? I mean, cookbooks, there are so many, and my sort of favourite one to go to, I think, to go back to for really real classics is the New British Classics by Gary Rhodes. I don't say that just because I worked on it years back. I say it because I really mean it. It was a really, it's full of everything. History of food, as well as some really great recipes that he was very modern in his thinking, and it was written years back now. So yeah, that's a book of all time.
Oh, well, that's brilliant. And lots of people are saying thank you very much. And so thanks very much, everyone, for joining us. And that's great. And Jo, thanks for cooking. That's a first for us, and joining us. And can I just say that we're very... No, you look gorgeous. I've just got the sun in my face. We've got the amazing Tara Wigley joining us tomorrow. And we're going to talk about co-writing a book that she wrote with Sami Tamimi, as I mentioned before. So thank you very much, everyone. And a big thank you to Jo.
Oh, thank you so much, Fran. You're doing a brilliant job, and thanks everyone for joining us on the Cookbook Festival Instagram live chat. Take care.
Thanks, Jo. Bye bye.